The Game Boy Color may be the most underappreciated mobile device in Nintendo's history. Jesus, where did you come from? No, we already talked about you. Sure, it probably came out a few years later than it should, and should have had a backlit screen, but none of us were complaining at the time. We had a full color Game Boy. And just like the Switch, we now have the Game Boy Color OLED model that's bigger and brighter. This quick and simple mod is the easiest way to transform your stock Game Boy Color into a beautifully updated retro handheld gaming masterpiece. Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Tynology Gaming. That's what we do around here. If you're new here, welcome. We like to have a good time. So a year and a half ago, I did a video on the Funny Playing Q5 IPS screen mod for the Game Boy Color. At the time, it was the best screen that you could put into a Game Boy Color. It looked absolutely beautiful. My favorite thing by far though was the lit up Game Boy Color logo. That was so cool. It was great, but the touch sensor was kind of annoying to use. Sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. And the install was kind of cumbersome with several solder points. I did have some soldering issues, and the D-pad up still doesn't work quite as well as it used to. I got wind of these new AMOLED laminated displays coming out, and I ordered one right away. Then I did nothing for about a month. I forgot about it, while everyone else made videos about it. Now there's a lot of options when it comes to these aftermarket displays for all sorts of handheld systems. So it's kind of important to know the technical differences in these different options. So bear with me, I'm gonna get technical for like a minute. IPS or in-plane switching displays are typically the best LCD panels that you can get. They have better contrast, better viewing angles, better color accuracy, better response time than traditional LCD panels. OLED or OLED panels take all those benefits to the next level, especially with how black colors are reproduced on the screen. OLED panels generally have individually backlit pixels, so if there's no color in that pixel, the backlight is off on that pixel, as opposed to the whole screen being backlit regardless of what color the pixel is. This greatly increases contrast ratio and image quality, as you can see here. An AMOLED display is essentially an OLED display with an additional transistor layer that regulates voltage to reduce power consumption. So it's used in smaller screens and generally things that run on batteries. So your giant, 70-inch OLED TV doesn't need that because you plug into the wall. It doesn't need that extra layer to regulate the voltage. But anyway, on a whim, I decided a few weeks ago to stream me installing this OLED panel, this AMOLED panel, into one of my Game Boy Colors. With very few hiccups, I had to trim down some of the insulating film and the screws. I ended up going back with my original screws instead of the ones that came with the kit. It was a pretty smooth process.
Look at it! Look at it!
I did screw up. There's one wire that you have to solder, 1-to-1. It's very easy, but I screwed up one side of it. And so the first time it didn't turn on.
Uh-oh. We have no screen.
But I quickly realized my mistake and had it back together. The whole stream, I was talking, I was stopping, I was playing music. It was actually a very, very straightforward install process. I'm not gonna go over it in detail. There's plenty. I'll link tutorials in the description if you need an actual step-by-step tutorial on how to install it. But just know that it was pretty straightforward. Way easier than the IPS install, I'll say that. Most of the stream, my big dumb head was blocking the view though. So here it is. I even 3D printed a case for it. I went with the clear shell with the black buttons to give it that modern retro kind of millennium vibe to it. I think it turned out really beautiful. Luckily, my donor Game Boy Color was in great shape and the white motherboard looks great on these clear shells. Now, what's awesome about this, if you remember the IPS display, you had to use a touch sensor to change any settings, and it was kind of a pain. You had to remember like certain button combinations, like changing the logo color. You had to hold certain buttons and then tap, and I would have to look it up every time because I couldn't remember. What's great about this one is it's a touchscreen. You just hold your finger down and you get all your options right there, and you can select them from the touchscreen. So much so much better. I can't even explain how much better this process is. You can adjust your brightness. You can adjust different color modes for like non-Game Boy Color games, for like regular Game Boy games. You can play with different scan lines. There's also a transparency fix for, you know, the flicker, for how those games used transparency. They'd flicker pixels on and off. You can turn that on, and you can adjust the position. Mine was perfect out of the box. And you can change the color of your Game Boy Color logo. The coolest part of all this. I think there's like 20 something different colors you can play with. Now, I'm gonna go over some pros and some cons of this screen specifically. Pro, it's the best looking screen. It just looks better than even the IPS. And it's more energy efficient. Taki Udon did a video where he actually compared battery life between the IPS and the OLED screens. So the stock Game Boy Color without any backlight gets about 10 hours of battery life on 2 AA's. The IPS Q5 only gets about 5.5 hours on 2 AA's. The OLED gets 7.5 hours on 2 AA's and probably could get even a little bit longer. So you're getting almost like a 50% increase in battery life over the Q5 IPS. The OLED panel on the black bezel looks really, really nice when you're playing something like Metroid, where there's solid black backgrounds. It looks like the image just disappears into the entire bezel because it's black on black. You don't have any backlight bleeding or anything like that. The touchscreen, by far the best way to control all your settings. Change your color of your Game Boy Color logo, hands down. It's competitively priced. I think it's $49 for the panel, $55 to $60 for the panel with a shell included and buttons. And they're available right now. I'll have an affiliate link if you want to support the channel in the description on where you can find them. Now, some cons. It doesn't actually get as dim as the Q5 IPS display. I'm not sure why, but on the lowest brightness, it's still really bright. You can add scan lines to dim it, but it just doesn't get quite as dim as that IPS. Also, there's no white bezel option. And I'm kind of torn on this because I love the white bezel on my Q5 IPS. And I think it looks really cool. But with the OLED, I've kind of changed course on that. I just would like there to be an option for more, if I want to do another one with a different aesthetic, I could use a white bezel instead. Now, aside from Metroid, there's not a whole lot of games that actually utilize a lot of black backgrounds because there was no backlight on the Game Boy Color. So I think a lot of games, they wanted, you know, white backgrounds so you could see it as much as possible without a backlight. And so going through and finding games was a little bit tough that actually utilized black backgrounds that really showed off the features of this OLED display. I should be clear, this is an AMOLED display. It's the more optimized for mobile type of OLED display. So these panels actually come from BlackBerry Q10 phones. I mean, they're brand new, but I heard someone say that once this runs its course, that there's only so much stock because that phone isn't being produced anymore, that these may go away. I'm not sure the truth of that. The only other mod that I think I would consider doing for this is maybe the LED lights on the motherboard mod, but those are hard to find in stock, especially with the clear flex PCB. And so if I see one pop up, I might do that. Maybe we'll do it on a stream. Also, my flash cart that I use matches perfectly with this. I did a video on this flash cart if you want to check it out right here. Now, if I did stream more mods like this or maybe some gameplay, would you be interested in watching? Leave me a comment down below. Otherwise, I'll be on Twitch. You can follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Tynology. I'm trying to do more streaming, especially of games and mods and stuff as I get them, and then I can make a video on it. I'm also considering other ways to help monetize this channel because I'd love to do this more. It's hard when, you know, I'm doing a lot of other things. But so I'm considering memberships or Patreon, merchandise, all sorts of things. So if there's something that you think that you would consider supporting the channel further so that I can get more content out more quickly, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this, if you enjoyed the process, if you enjoyed our time together, be sure to like the video, subscribe if you're not already, leave a comment, share it with a friend. I appreciate your support. I appreciate you coming back and watching these videos. If this is your first time, welcome. It's good to have you. Now, do you have any modded Game Boys? Have you tried this OLED display? Let me know. I'll see you guys soon. I have a lot of videos coming out. I say that every time and then I don't, but this time I'm not lying. Cheers.